You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, broadcasting from our studio in Edmonton, Canada. It's Tuesday, June the 22nd on this side of the globe. And a good Wednesday morning, magandang umaga, to our viewers in the Philippines. In the news, we have updates from several of our correspondents from across North America. Eliza Gonzalez-Manglicmot in Washington, D.C.
Miss Universe Philippines visits the embassy here in Washington, D.C. And the Filipino American Cancer Care new officers take oath at the embassy. Plus, Philippine ambassador to the United States unveils a national historical marker.
Jane Kathleen Gregorio from Corpus Christi, Texas, talks about a Second Amendment law that's been signed into force in Texas. Also from Texas, Fanny Valadez talks with a refugee from Honduras who is seeking asylum in the United States. Macy Membrere in Sacramento, California, tells us about extra money being available for families with children under the age of 6. Michael Hudson reports from Seattle, Washington, on the COVID relief fund that was recently approved by Seattle City Council. For EBC Sports, EJ Gonzalez has more NBA news for us. And for EBC Food, I get hungry thinking about EBC Food all the time. Gia Ganuelas Roldan in San Antonio shares with us her recipe for winter melon milk tea with boba. Oh, a roundtable tonight is National Hydration Day. Water is power. Our coverage begins now. A disappointment for U.S. President Joe Biden. It's unlikely Biden will see the U.S. meet its goal of vaccinating 70% of the adult population with at least one shot of the COVID vaccine by July the 4th. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tried to put a positive spin on the news.
We don't see it exactly like something went wrong. How we see it is we set a bold, ambitious goal, something the president has done from the very beginning. And we are expected to meet that goal just a couple weeks after July 4th. And in fact, at this point, as of today, we're going to be already at that point for people who are 30 years of age and older.
Now, like other countries, Psaki points out that the United States is trying to overcome hesitancy by some people.
Demographic groups and sometimes populations where it's more difficult to reach. We've seen that, and we've talked about that as it related to early on to hesitancy we were seeing in communities of color or some more conservative communities, and we've seen it's been a great deal more difficult to get young people between the ages of 18 and 26 vaccinated than adults who are older than that.
As of today, 65.4% of Americans over 18 had received at least one dose of the vaccine. Now, India faces the challenge of not only trying to vaccinate a huge population, we're talking about more than 1 billion adults, but also they have to reach many of these people who live in out-of-the-way regions. Getting medicine and vaccines to people there has prompted the government to experiment with drones to deliver the goods. It has given about 20 companies permission to conduct experimental flights. But drones could be a game changer, as many of those hard-to-reach places have limited health care. Nagendran Kundaswamy of Throttle Aerospace Systems says his company is experimenting with a couple of different drones.
We are trying two different copters at this point of time. One is a Medcopter X4, another one is a Medcopter X8. Medcopter X4 is something like can take maximum payload of 1 kg and travel for 20 kilometers continuously. And it has a range of 20 kilometers and it can fly for continuously 55 minutes of time. And we do have another copter called a Medcopter X8, which can carry a 2 kg of maximum payload and it travels continuously for a 15 kilometer and it's fly for a 35 to 45 minutes of time.
He says in settlements that take a few hours to reach by road, a drone can make that same trip in 10 to 15 minutes. Let's look at today's COVID-19 numbers now, provided by the Coronavirus Resource Institute of the Johns Hopkins University in Medicine. As of 6 p.m. Eastern Time today, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide, now more than 178,934,000. Top 3 on the list of countries with recorded cases: The United States, more than 33.5 million. India, more than 29.9 million. And Brazil, more than 17.9 million. Sadly, more than 3,876,000 lives have been lost to this virus. Top three countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths are the United States with more than 602,000, Brazil more than 502,000, and India more than 389,000. Now, the number of COVID vaccine doses administered worldwide now standing at more than 2,679,000,000. Freedom of the press. That's something that's viewed differently in different parts of the world. Journalism and newspapers have come under the government's spotlight in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government has arrested the executives of the pro-democracy newspaper Apple Daily. It's also seized the company's assets. There's word the paper is about to shut down. Carrie Lam, Hong Kong's chief executive, defends the government's recent actions. Lam rejects suggestions that the government is trying to suppress the media.
And don't try to accuse the Hong Kong authorities for using the national security law as a tool to suppress the media or to stifle the freedom of expression. All those accusations made by the US government, I'm afraid.
So, if freedom of expression is allowed, how is Lam defining it? Are journalists allowed to question or criticize the government? Are they allowed to hold different points of view?
So what we are talking about is not exchanging views between foreigners and journalists. It is violating the law as defined in the national security law and based on very clear evidence, which will bring the case to court. So don't try to underplay the significance of bridging the national security law. And don't try to beautify these acts of endangering national security.
Dangerous times indeed for journalism. Just a few hours away from Hong Kong and Myanmar, another protest. Dozens of people staged a flash mob protest in the streets of Yangon. They demonstrated against February's takeover of the government by the military. They held up three-finger salutes and chanted slogans such as, "We want democracy," and "Let's end the military dictatorship." Meantime, deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi appeared in court again today. She's on trial for sedition and for flouting COVID restrictions during an election. That's the election that her ousted party won in a landslide. She remains under house arrest. More violence in the Middle East overnight. Israeli far-right extremists and Palestinians fought in the streets of Israeli-annexed East Jerusalem. Israeli border guards patrolled the area trying to keep the peace. They used a water cannon to extinguish fires that were lit by the protesters. 4 people arrested. No indication as to who started the fighting. Israel captured East Jerusalem in the 1967 war. Well, I have some animal stories for you now. This first one, Spider-Man would love this. An arachnid invasion in Australia has left fields in the Gippsland region covered with this sea of silk. Just look at it up there on the screen. The spiders normally live in the soil, but flooding has forced them to seek higher ground. So they released webs to create makeshift parachutes. Now, these parachutes allow them to ride the wind currents to a safer location. It's known as ballooning. And an animal on the most wanted list of a local police department? Yeah, that's right. In Thornton, New Hampshire, police were baffled by a series of car break-ins. They've been going on for several weeks. They finally identified the thief. You can see the culprit here. A large black bear. The bear was caught red-pawed by some home security cameras. Let's watch him here. He stands on his hind legs, uses paws to open the car door, and then he just climbs into the driver's seat and kind of rummages around looking for food. Police Chief Kenneth Miller says the bear still remains at large. Up next, we have a couple of stories from Texas. Eagle News America continues.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas. A 1-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to thank our health outdoor
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. From a vantage point in Mexico, people look across the southern border of the United States and see greener pastures. They cross that invisible line to seek asylum and opportunity in America. We have a report from Eagle News correspondent Fanny Valadez, who spoke with someone who hopes one day to become an American.
Gracias and hola from the Lone Star State. I'm Fanny Valadez with the latest updates in the South Texas border region.
Venimos a bendecirles con este pequeño obsequio de parte de Dios para ustedes.
Today, we visit the town of Reynosa, Mexico, across the U.S. border from the city of McAllen, Texas. Here, we can see hundreds of asylum seekers in tent encampments hoping for the chance to seek refuge inside the United States. Last Wednesday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott had held a press conference in Austin where he announced plans of the state to rebuild the border wall, which followed the governor's border security summit the week before in Del Rio, Texas, where the governor brought together law enforcement, city and county officials, and landowners to discuss ways to secure the border and keep communities safe. Meanwhile, local charity groups and organizations in Reynosa are working with refugees who are seeking asylum. We spoke with one of the asylum seekers, Noemi from Honduras, who is currently taking shelter in one of the camps here in Reynosa.
Okay. Estamos en Reynosa, Tamaulipas. Okay, con Noemi. Muchísimas gracias, Noemi. Noemi, ¿de dónde vienes?
Honduras.
De Honduras. Ok. ¿Cuánto tiempo tienes aquí esperando?
Aquí tenemos ya casi 3 horas, los 3 meses.
3 meses esperando. ¿Cómo piensas tú cruzar o cuál es tu esperanza para ir a los Estados Unidos?
Bueno, supuestamente, primero Dios, estamos anotadas en una iglesia y nos están ayudando a conseguir asilo. Entonces estamos anotadas ahí, entonces estamos esperando el llamado de eso.
Con la aplicación para el asilo, para poder cruzar
para cruzar al otro lado, porque ya muchas personas de aquí ya han cruzado.
Sí lo han hecho, pero es una larga fila porque vinieron muchos, ¿verdad?
Sí, claro.
Ok. Solamente quiero que vean el campamento.
In Edinburgh, Texas, I'm Fanny Valadez, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Vivimos en tiempos interesantes.
The governor of Texas has signed a law that will allow people to carry handguns without a permit or taking any training. EBC's Jane Kathleen Gregorio joins us now from Corpus Christi with more on that story. Jane Kathleen, what are the details of this law?
Well, thank you, Thomas, and howdy from the Lone Star State. On Thursday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed 7 pieces of legislation into law protecting Second Amendment rights in Texas. Attendees of the governor's bill signing ceremony included Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Speaker Dade Phelan, and members of the legislature, along with representatives from the National Rifle Association. These 7 pieces of legislation include Senate Bill 19, which prohibits governmental entities from contracting with any business that discriminates against firearm and ammunition businesses or organizations. Senate Bill 20, which allows guests to store firearms in their hotel rooms. Senate Bill 550, which removes the shoulder or belt holster requirements, allowing Texans to carry firearms in whatever kind of holster they choose. House Bill 957, which repeals the criminal offense of possessing, manufacturing, transporting, or repairing a firearm silencer, and also ensures that any firearm suppressor made in Texas and that remains in Texas will not be subject to federal law or federal regulation. House Bill 1500, which prevents any government entity from prohibiting the sale or transportation of firearms or ammunition during a declared disaster or emergency. House Bill 1927, which authorizes constitutional carry in Texas, where law-abiding Texans may legally carry a handgun without a license to carry. And House Bill 2622, which makes Texas a Second Amendment sanctuary state by protecting Texans from new federal gun control regulations. Meanwhile, I hope you are staying safe in your part of the country. In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Jane, what is the Texas constitutional carry, and when does it take effect?
That's a good question, Thomas. So this is actually under House Bill 1927. And this is where, law-abiding Texans are allowed to carry a handgun without having a license to carry. And, one of the things that Governor Abbott stated, the reason why he put these laws into place, he stated during his news conference that politicians from the federal level to the local level have threatened to take guns away from law-abiding citizens, but we will not let that happen in Texas, according to Governor Abbott. He also stated that Texas will always be the leader in defending the Second Amendment, which is why we built a barrier around gun rights this session. And these 7 laws are to protect the rights of law-abiding citizens and ensure that Texas remains a bastion of freedom. Thomas? Oh, by the way, it does, like you asked me, when does it take effect? Here in Corpus Christi, they announced that it was going to take effect September 1st. Thomas?
Okay, I want to focus in on another story. Texas has done I guess, just a stellar job of attracting a lot of business and so on to the state, moving from more expensive places in America. I understand the state has been recognized with a business award. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, Thomas, actually, thank you for mentioning that. Once again, Texas has been recognized for the 9th year with a Gold Shovel Award by Area Development Magazine. And this recognizes the states that lead the most populous states in attracting high-value business investments in 2020 that are creating a significant number of new jobs across the state. In fact, one of the companies that had invested in Texas is Tesla Gigafactory. It was established just outside Austin and was named by Area Develop magazine as the manufacturing project of the year because it's a $1.1 billion investment is expected to create 5,000 jobs. And other significant job creation investments in Texas includes Amazon creating 3,500 jobs in the cities of Waco, Oak Cliff, and Pflugerville. Peloton, another company set up in Plano, Texas, is creating 1,600 jobs. FedEx in Dallas is creating 1,200 jobs. Navistar International Corps in San Antonio is creating 600 jobs. And Max Midstream in Point Comfort is creating 474 jobs. Also, another one, Fresh Pet Inc. in Ennis, Texas, is creating 427 jobs, as well as Gulf Coast Ammonia LLC in Texas City, which is bringing in 40 jobs. Thomas?
So, sounds like employment is not a problem in Texas, and I guess the place to be, at least in terms of the economy. Thanks for joining us, Jane Kathleen, and do stick around. Look forward to talking to you during the roundtable. Still to come, we have stories from Washington, D.C., California, and Washington State. This is Eagle News America.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
Kailan mo ba mapapansin ang aking lihim? Kahit anong aking gawin, di mo pinapansin.
Michelle Ayalde. Please catch me on Letters and Music on air and online this coming Sunday, June 27, 1 to 2 p.m. only here at Net 25. See ya!
Di mo pa rin pansin.
Samahan sina Wedge Kujamat,
itong balitang panggising sa ulo ng mga balita.
Apple David,
Sa 60 katao ang isinugod sa ospital.
Phoebe Publico,
Economic sabotage ang mga tiwaling negosyante.
at Cristel Fesalbon
Pagpresyo ng gulay, makakausap natin
para iatid sa inyo ang mga kaganapan at pangyayari sa bansa at sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. Mga napapanahong isyu ng bayan. May balitang sports, entertainment at iba pang kaalaman. Simula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng umaga sa paborito nyong morning show, Pambansang Almusal, dito sa Net 25.
Pambansang Almusal.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Langlos. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. has been a busy place of late. EBC's Eliza Gonzalez-Maglicmot joins us live now. Eliza, I guess, well, it's kind of your beat to cover the embassy, and that's kept you pretty busy with a number of stories these days.
Hi, Thomas. A good Tuesday evening to you and a safe morning to our friends on the other side of the globe. Indeed, the Philippine Embassy is taking advantage of the easing of COVID restrictions here in the Washington, D.C. area. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, has been very busy in several recent embassy events. In an effort to recognize the achievements of Filipinos, the ambassador meets with Miss Universe Philippines 2020, Rabia Mateo. He presents her with a certificate of recognition. Meanwhile, the embassy also gives time to show its commitment to supporting Filipino Americans dealing with cancer. Ambassador Romualdez welcomes the new officers of Filipino American Cancer Care, or the FACC, during an oath-taking ceremony at the embassy's Chancery Annex building. In his remarks, he recognizes the important role the FACC plays in promoting healthy lifestyles, supporting policy changes, providing safe spaces for research and learning, and supporting cancer-afflicted loved ones in the Filipino American community. The FACC will hold an event this summer that aims to help underprivileged cancer patients in the Philippines. And lastly, Ambassador Romualdez unveils the National Historical Markers from the National Historical Commission of the Philippines of the official residence of the Philippine ambassador to the United States. The unveiling coincides with the 75th anniversary of the formal establishment of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and the U.S. Ambassador Romualdez speaks of the importance of the shared values, shared history, and long-standing friendship between the U.S. and the Philippines. He emphasizes that the insights gained over the years of friendship between the two countries would help both nations forge ahead into the future. Now for some weather update, it is currently 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital. Precipitation is at 1%, humidity at 64%, and winds at 5 miles per hour. In Washington, D.C., Eliza Gonzalez and Manglek Mott, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Eliza, like everybody else, it looks like the embassy staff just can't wait to get out and about. And you've been to several embassy events over the years pre-pandemic. As we said, it's part of your beat. What were you able to cover? Were you able to cover, I should say, anything during the pandemic or recently? And if so, what were the differences when you were at these events?
Well, Thomas, the embassy, they've held virtual events for several months when, in-person gatherings were still prohibited. But only a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken, it was in March, on their first back to in-person event, Eagle News was there. There was not a lot of invited people, but we were there. And it was during, I think, the unveiling of the milestone logo of the Philippines and the U.S. 75th year of diplomatic relations. Now, previously, pre-pandemic, every time there's an event at the Philippine Embassy, there's quite a crowd who attend. But during this first back to in-person event, Thomas, you could really notice there were not too many. First, because they didn't invite a lot because they were observing CDC guidelines, and everyone were wearing masks. Of course, everyone was social distancing. And but one thing is for sure, everyone seemed to feel good to see everybody who was in attendance, because it was one of the very first events where people got to see each other again in person. Although no shaking of hands, no hugging, just waving from afar, and it was still good to be there. Thomas?
But nevertheless, good to be with people in person without a camera and a screen between you. Let me ask you, though, what's your favorite event at the embassy that you've covered?
Ooh, that's a tough question, because we're always there. We're often there. But several that comes to mind. I love going to their annual Women's History Month celebrations. They do it every March, but of course, last year it was virtual, and this year too, it was virtual. They also hold Filipino artist exhibits at the Centro Rizal DC. And one of my favorites also was the Eurasia Shorts 2019, where they showcased short films from Europe and Asia countries and the United States. And also the Bamboo Whispers. It's a poetry book. A show. It was a show. And then, of course, their Migrant Workers Day that they hold every year, where you get to see a lot of kababayans who work here, who miss the Philippines, but being together in events like that at the embassy. It gives you a feeling of community. Thomas?
Well, hopefully there'll be a full calendar of events for you to cover in the upcoming months, and we're looking forward to hearing your reports from those. And we're also looking forward to hearing from you when we get together around the virtual roundtable just a little bit later in the program. Thanks again for your report, Eliza.
I'll see you later, Thomas.
Good news for families in California with children under the age of 6. They may be eligible for some extra financial help. Eagle News correspondent Macy Membreri has the details.
Thank you. In national news, the American Rescue Plan includes a child tax credit in which eligible families will receive up to $300 per child starting next month. For California families with children under 6 years of age, if eligible, they may also receive an additional $1,000 per year with California's Young Child Tax Credit. Now summer has begun and temperatures across the state of California continue to remain hot. Now CAL FIRE continues to remind residents to protect their homes and their families. However, CAL FIRE reminds of 3 main things that residents should be mindful of. First one is a defensible space or perimeter around the home. Second, hardening the home. And third, a proper evacuation plan, which all members of the household should be aware of. In Sacramento, California, Macy Membreri, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
On the West Coast, City Council in Seattle, Washington has approved a COVID relief fund. With more on that story, EBC's Michael Hudson.
Thanks a lot. For Washington State, as of right now, there are 450,000 positive COVID-19 cases with 5,881 deaths. The Seattle Council recently approved a COVID-19 relief fund for $128 million, which will be used to help residents, programs, and businesses. The majority of the money will be coming from President Biden's American Rescue Act, which was signed back in March. Here's a breakdown of all the funds and how they will be used for the Seattle community. $49.2 million on housing and homelessness, such as tiny homes and outreach programs. $41 million for community well-being, like cash assistance for households affected by the pandemic and city services like libraries. $23.5 million for community recovery, including small business grants and job training. And $7.6 million for city services and workers to upgrade technology and help employees return to work. As for how the money will be disseminated, there are still no specifics given at this time. From Seattle, Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you.
Up next, EBC Sports, EBC Food. And our roundtable, we'll talk about National Hydration Day. And you're watching Eagle News America.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime laws.
Tayo lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot.
92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa Balitalakayan.
We live in interesting times.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
Surprises this NBA season. You know, some teams who were favored to win it all, well, they were booted out of the playoffs right away. Many fans will attest, though, that the four remaining teams, they're the ones that all deserve to be there. With NBA updates now, we have EBC's EJ Gonzalez.
Thanks, Thomas. The race for this year's NBA championship is down to the toughest four teams: the Phoenix Suns, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Atlanta Hawks. Over the weekend, the Eastern Conference semifinals hosted 2 Game 7s for the Bucks-Nets series and the Sixers-Hawks series. The Nets were without Kyrie Irving yet again, and Kevin Durant was expected to carry a heavy load. In the final seconds of regulation, Kevin Durant hit an extremely difficult turnaround fadeaway jumper, and his shot tied the game. But with his toe landing on the three-point line, Durant was literally inches away from handing the Milwaukee Bucks a Game 7 exit. Instead, the Bucks were able to hold off the Nets in overtime to take the series and punch their spot into the Eastern Conference Finals. Durant, however, did make history by scoring 48 total points, which is the most points ever in a Game 7. Now, in the Hawks and Sixers series, it was another close battle that featured 20 lead changes throughout the 4 quarters. The Hawks were led by Kevin Huerter, who put up a career playoff high of 27 points, while their superstar Trae Young held his own with 21 points and 10 assists. Joel Embiid tried his best to keep his team in the game and finished with 31 points and 11 rebounds, but in the end, the Atlanta Hawks were able to win the game 103-96 and make their first Eastern Conference Finals appearance since 2015. Now, Game 1 of the Western Conference was already played over the weekend as well, but each team went into the contest without a superstar. Chris Paul missed Game 1 after testing positive for COVID-19 and was placed on the health and safety protocols list, while Kawhi Leonard was out with that ACL injury. Now, this gave opportunities for others to step up, and Devin Booker was that guy for the Phoenix Suns. Booker ended up being the primary ball handler, putting up his first ever career triple-double, 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 11 assists to lead the Suns to a Game 1 victory over the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, Game 2 will be held tonight at 9:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Phoenix. In the Eastern Conference Finals, The game 1 between the Hawks and the Bucks will be held tomorrow night in Milwaukee at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, for these franchises, it may be their best chance to win the championship in recent years, as the juggernaut teams that featured LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry, they're no longer in the picture. The Hawks franchise hasn't won a championship in over half a century, since 1958 as the St. Louis Hawks. The Bucks franchise hasn't won a championship since 1971, while both the Suns and the Clippers have never, ever won a championship in their franchise history. Now, for some additional basketball-related news, Kevin Love, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, James Harden, and Kevin Durant have been the latest stars to commit to playing in the Tokyo Olympics. The other players that have committed to play for Team USA thus far are Damian Lillard, Draymond Green, Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Jason Tatum. Now, Lillard, Holiday, Booker, Beal, Tatum, Middleton, and Adebayo, they're making their first appearance on the Olympic stage. Durant has the most experience on the team and has already won 2 Olympic gold medals with Team USA, which he earned back in 2012 and 2016. In Alexandria, Virginia, EJ Gonzalez, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Well, we go to the kitchen now, where we join Gia Gonzalez-Roldan from our Texas bureau. She's going to show us how to make winter melon milk tea with boba.
Summer is here, and why not cool off with a refreshing exotic beverage?
Hi everyone, welcome to Gia's Kitchen. I am Gia Gonzalez-Roldan, and for today I'm going to share a simple recipe of winter melon milk tea.
For our ingredients, we need the following: 1 1/2 tablespoon of winter melon syrup and 1 1/2 tablespoon of fructose syrup. We also need 1/4 cup of creamer, boba pearls or tapioca, and 1/4 cup of black tea. Let's put the 1/4 cup of a black tea first to our drink mixer. And then let's add a creamer. Then let's add the fructose syrup. And lastly, add the winter melon syrup. And then let's mix all together. And then let's add some ice. And then let's shake it again. And then let's just put some boba pearls or tapioca pearls to your glass. And just transfer the winter melon milk tea.
I hope you enjoy this winter melon milk tea recipe. In San Antonio, Texas, I am Gia Gonzalez-Roldan, Eagle News. We live in interesting time.
Well, it's June 20, coming up June 23rd here in just a couple of hours, but it is June 23rd in the Philippines, and it's National Hydration Day. What's that, you say? Well, we're going to talk about water. You know, proper hydration is vital to living a healthy life, but it's something we often overlook. How much water you drink? I can tell you, I don't drink enough. It's easy to forget to carry a water bottle with you on a hot day outside. But skipping out on water can lead to a lot of health problems. We'll talk about some of those later. But why a day to commemorate this? National Hydration Day was actually created in honor of a football coach. His name was Victor Hawkins, and he invented a special hydrating mouth guard. And that could keep his players healthy on the field and probably a whole lot more competitive. Well, Safety Guard was the company that now sells his invention. They actually launched the holiday after Hawkins' death to honor his legacy and to encourage others to stay hydrated. So, whether you're a professional athlete, a casual exerciser, somebody who just kind of sits around and talks and writes like I do, or somebody who simply loves to spend time outside in the sun, drinking water is a key to avoiding things like heat stroke, dehydration, and other dangerous issues. And dehydration is something, I think a lot of people suffer from minor dehydration and don't even realize it. Again, something we'll delve into as we continue on with the roundtable tonight. So anyway, celebrating National Hydration Day, a great way to raise awareness about water. Some of the benefits of drinking water. Well, I'm going to pass that one over to Eliza because, she knows all about hydration. She didn't go to a real medical school, but anyway, Eliza, you're very familiar with the benefits of hydration and how it can actually help you if you've got some minor health problems and can actually stave off some major ones too.
Yeah, well, based on our research, Thomas, according to healthline.com, it helps maximize physical performance, significantly affects energy levels and brain function, and it may help prevent and treat headaches, help relieve constipation, may help treat kidney stones, and helps prevent, it can aid weight loss too, based on studies. Well, let me share with you some insight, my personal insight on water. Ever since I was little, it's been a very precious commodity for me because, like I've mentioned before, growing up, we had to pump water for drinking, for bathing, for cooking, for anything we need it for. We don't just turn on our faucets and water will come out. No, it's not like that. We have to go out the house and pump it and bring it back in big containers. I remember one time thinking that maybe years into the future, drinking water will be sold to people. And today, Thomas and Kat, bottled water is everywhere and you have to pay for them. It just shows how important it is, but how scarce it is too. Right, Kat?
Wow, your story about having to pump water and carry the heavy gallons, it just makes you appreciate water so much more. Unlike growing up here, as I did in America, I had the convenience of always having the faucets and, being able to, we take it for granted, but having gone through what you did, I can see how one would appreciate that so much, that privilege of being able to have, running water all the time. Well, in terms of the topic today, Thomas, of National Hydration Day, I realized at some point that I'm probably not drinking enough water. But so what I've done, because I work, fortunately, I don't work outside, and so I'm not suffering from heat stroke, especially during this Texas heat wave. But I have my Yeti here. It's a pretty big, kind of a pretty big size, and I fill it up with ice. And sometimes to add flavor, I will add like a flavored tea packet. Like my favorite is like this peach and passion fruit flavored black tea, and I would just let it sit there in the ice and let it cold brew, and I would just keep it at my desk, and it adds like a nice flavor, so that way drinking water doesn't have to be boring. And also sometimes I will even put slices of cucumber or lemon just to have that infusion of fruits, or like I love the smell of cucumber, so it makes it very refreshing. And interesting fact that I researched on Google, it talked about how many water bottles does the United States normally consume. It's enough to circle around the earth 190 times. Can you believe that?
I've got to ask you, did your research tell you whether it was water bottles like this or were they laid end to end?
Oh, well,
it's a lot anyway, either way.
That's a good question.
But Eliza, you mentioned, and I want you guys to weigh in on this. You mentioned that water is a precious commodity, and I really wish tonight we had some of our correspondents from the western states, particularly Nevada and California, because they're into water shortages there. Lake Mead, which supplies Las Vegas, that reservoir is down to it's a shadow of its former self. Where there used to be marinas, they have beach now. The lake is shrinking. That's the lake that's back of the Hoover Dam that goes into the Colorado River, and who knows what effect that's going to have downstream with that river. California, again, the reservoirs are just drying up. We showed some pictures of those a few weeks ago on Eagle News America. So truly, it is a precious commodity. Do you feel people just take it for granted? I mean, we use that casual expression, oh, he spends money like water, as if water had no value at all. But do you think people value water? What can we do to make them value water?
Well, information dissemination, you tell what you know, you share what you know about how hard it is for a lot of countries, not just in other countries, but here in the United States as well. Not all states have abundance of water, like you've mentioned, Thomas. So I think it's all a responsibility to conserve water and know what to do with it and what not to do with it.
Yeah, and again, is the water you got usable? I remember I used to live on the Mississippi River. Well, not on the river, but in a place called Rock Island, Illinois, which is right on the Mississippi River. And you wouldn't want to drink anything out of that river. It's just so polluted. What's it like in Texas down there? Do you have a water shortage? I know you were flooded a while back, but in terms of actual usable drinking water, did you suffer from droughts down there?
Well, Thomas, it's a good question. I live in South Texas. Our situation here in Corpus Christi, it's a little bit different. Although we do have water, regulations where we can only water our gardens, at certain times, especially during drought season. Right now we're preparing for hurricane season, which is happening, between now through September or November. But one of the situations we have here is sometimes hurricanes or sometimes severe weather, sometimes situations will happen where our water supply, could get contaminated or could have some, situations where we have to go into water boil effect. So during those days, we will have to just buy bottled water for consumption, and have to boil the water that we do have, because there's times that I guess the systems that we have in place, if they malfunction, it could lead to bacteria in the water, and the authorities tell us when we have to do water boils. So it's just how our infrastructure is here in Corpus Christi. But one of the projects I've heard about recently is because we live by the ocean. One of the topics is desalinization, where you take the ocean water and remove the salt from it to make it drinkable. So that's one of the issues that's currently on the table right now for our area here.
You mentioned about boil water advisories, and I have to think in terms of North America when we have them, and we get them up here from time to time in some communities, it's considered an inconvenience. But sadly, for a large part of the world, it's a fact of life. There's just no potable water. There's no water that's usable. Water everywhere, but never a drop to drink. I think that was Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote that in The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. But, you can be surrounded by water, but you still can't drink it. It's something, again, I think we take a lot of these things for granted. We turn on that cold water tap and we get cold water. We turn on the hot water tap and we get hot water, and then spend 20 minutes in the shower.
Cut it down to 3 and no long showers, no bubble baths.
Oh, but I love bubble baths.
It's something I think we're going to have to come to grips with. As the climate is changing, as the population grows, water has got to be treated as a precious commodity, as you said, Eliza, in your initial remarks. We have to do something about that.
But health-wise, Thomas, how often do you drink water a day, and how much?
Sadly, probably not enough. I mean, I have a big cup full first thing in the morning, and maybe a couple of others throughout the day. I don't drink as much coffee as I used to, maybe 1 or 2 cups.
That's good.
I tend to drink 3 or 4 cups of tea.
Okay. So you like it. You like tea. You like tea a lot. I know that before every broadcast, you have to have that cup of tea.
After 12 noon, I like tea, but sadly, I don't drink enough water. My wife makes a lot of smoothies, so I'm getting water content there, and it's good water content as opposed to a can of soda. Because that's just doing nothing for you other than shortening your life. But
I'm guilty. But like Kathleen, I have with me this one where I fill this with cold water, and then I have another one. I fill it with hot water, and if I'm not home, I bring these 2 with me, and I drink it throughout the day because, like you said, whenever I get a headache, I don't really like taking medicine, so a glass of water helps a lot.
And any last remarks for us, Kathleen?
If you can't get a hold of water immediately, why not eat a water-soluble food like watermelon?
Watermelon is great. Watermelon
Thomas is having watermelon smoothie right now.
My wife made me one. And before we go tonight, I want to remember those people working on the front lines. And I'm talking about our healthcare workers, first responders, essential workers of all types, everybody out there on the front lines. I want to recognize them with a round of applause this evening. Just say to you, we appreciate you. That's today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, and truly, we live in interesting times.
Startup